What is up, YouTube world? Doing a little bit better today. I don't know. Top of the morning to you. Just feeling it a little bit more than usual. I guess trying to maybe revise, polish up the last video I made, and keep it serious too. Feeling a little goofy, silly goofy mood. So wanting to shed the light, shine this little light of mine. Anyways, I was gonna do like some poetry and stuff, but I want to kick it out of the field, if you will. But I want to start it over because it seems like I already got a good flow going. But family dynamics and sticking to it and thinking long term. So something I've kind of noticed is this force between two people, whoever you may be, white, black, yellow, Asian, purple, Asian, the whole nine, is like this animosity, it's kind of like you seem like you're walking on eggshells, but you don't want to talk to the problem about the problem, but at the same time it's like, how am I supposed to solve the problem if I can't work with the problem? So something I've noticed is just space, giving people space to move forward and feel that inner, I'm looking for the right word, that it's like this push and this pull, that I talked about last time, and trying to find that and work with it, and giving each other space so that they can kind of distance themselves and have time to think, and hopefully think, if at the very least, if just get over it and move forward, move on, because I know it can be kind of daunting to have to have conversations with people, especially when they might be explosive, which is something that I've dealt with quite a bit. Either that, or they're just dismissive and they don't even want to acknowledge anything that comes to mind or is in their plethora of different various personalities, I feel like people don't realize it a lot of times. They have these different personas, and I'm probably gonna have to go back and revise this video. I might just say what the heck and upload it anyways, even though I'm kind of going on a tangent this morning, but I try to keep it coherent. Simply put, just thinking about the different dynamics and different ways people work and trying to stick to it so that you don't have to go out and do it on your own, because I don't think we're meant to go out and do it on our own. I mean, we're social creatures, kind of I think that's why dogs and humans get along so well, because we're social creatures. Speaking of, okay, there's my dog. I was like, well, she run off already? It's like, man, you got food, you got water, you got a place to sleep, and you just running off. I feel like there's that kind of correlates to what I'm talking about. Sometimes when these things come up, to where Odie and I believe Buddy were buried. Rest in peace, guys. It's easy to just want to leave and just escape and just run off and be all right, let me just start anew. Let me do something different. Let me do something new. I got all these plans. I'm just gonna, run off wherever it may be. Move to another country. Me and a coworker were joking. I was like, man, I'm gonna get a credit card and just rack up a bunch of debt. Not like any debt, but I'm gonna get go run out and buy a bunch of lottery tickets. Just spend all of that credit card credit on like some lottery tickets, and he was like, nah, man, what you need to do is you need to buy some hard physical assets and then just leave the country. What are they gonna do? You're gone. You're not even in the country. You know, and I've joked to other people about it. Like, one of my old roommates, I remember his brother was just talking about, like, yeah, I'm gonna just blow all my money on the lottery. I'm just go gamble it away. And I'm like, man, as funny as that is to say, I don't think that's a very practical solution, you know? And that's kind of what I was getting into yesterday. It's like you have other people's plan and you have your plan. And hopefully their plan and your plan are congruent. They work together. But if they're not, then you got to sit back and say, okay, what am I going to do today? What am I going to do tomorrow? And what am I going to say to them, you know, in order to save the day? Anyways, I'll tell you what, I'm kind of feeling it. But, you know, ups and downs. And that's something I've noticed, you know, with a lot of people, even you know, the people that are sane, is they have, like, their ups and downs, you know. Again, I was talking to a coworker, and they were like, you know, what do you mean there's nothing wrong with you? You're telling me there's nothing wrong with you? There's not a single thing that's wrong with you. And, like, I remember watching the Super Mario movie, and there was, like, the blue star, and it was just like, it seemed like it was just rambling on about like all this stuff, and it was just like, in an insane world, when you call it crazy, it's sane, and at the end of the movie, it's just like, now what are you gonna do to fill the void? And I was just like, man, like, what the heck? Like, I honestly got a laugh out of me, because it was just like that abysmal craziness that, like, I feel like our generation feels a lot of, and you know, it's easy to like have these peaks in the moment, you know, which is why I wanted to make this video now, because I was like, all right, I'm kind of feeling it. Let me get outside. Let me make a good video. Let me spread some of that energy throughout the cosmos, throughout the universe. But at the same time, also helping people navigate those lows, because I'm telling you, like, when I was younger, I didn't really get, like, well, that's a lie. After I got through, like, that teenage angst, I didn't really have those lows that, like, a lot of people have. Like, I didn't really get super depressed. Like, I'd have moments where I was, like, kind of worried, and, you know, I was in, like, I had grief, I had strife, you know, especially with, like, my home life and my mom and my dad. You know, that's a whole story for another day. But I kind of found a path for myself, you know, and I guess I got a little bit too comfortable. Something that I kind of want to emphasize on maybe in a later video. But just that overall feeling of like, all right, let me get away from it all. And you know, I would say if you can take a vacation, that's good, but it's not always sunshine and rainbows. It's not always like it's, you know, like we're in some type of movie or something. You know, it's like there's quarrels and things to worry about. It's like, oh, what is this person doing? What is this person thinking? You know, if I do this and this, what are they gonna think? And a lot of times it's like trying to just exist, you know. And it's like, how do I just exist in this environment that I'm living in? You know, it's like I have this plan, but my plan doesn't seem to work with their plan, and their plan doesn't seem to work at all. Like, I'm thinking about it, and, you know, it's like, you know, well, my generation just knows everything, and, you know, the older generation is like, well, of course you guys think you know everything, and it's like, it just feels like they're out of touch, you know. So it's hard to, like, talk to people like that, because it's like, well, it doesn't, I don't think you understand. And then, you know, I talk to them, and they're like, well, I don't think you understand. And it's like, how do you know, right? Because I've been told this is color theory, but then this is something that I sat on ever since I was a child, where it's like, you know, on camera, and this is like I guess like a metaphor, analogy for me, but on camera, that green is not the same green that I see. We both agree that that's green, right? But it doesn't look the same. Like, just on camera, it doesn't look the same. So if, you know, you're talking to someone and you're like, hey, that's blue, just like on camera, the blue that they see may not be the same blue that you see. And I feel like that kind of goes along with like words and, you know, interpretation and translation, where it's like you may be on the same page as someone, you may be on the same book, but the way they think about it, the way they interpret it is like completely different, and the way they see it, it's like completely different. So it's like you get lost, or you get like stuck in this like, it's like this cycle of like just rumbling and tumbling, where it's like both parties are kind of like on edge. And you know, it seems like it takes so little to get people worked up nowadays, you know, especially since people are like stuck in these echo chambers and, you know, their little bubbles. So all that to say, I find that there's like a lot of utility in trying to stick around, you know, calling people's bluff, or, you know, the bluff that they don't even want to acknowledge it. They don't even want to talk about it. It's like this hidden, you know, like feeling, you know. Like I remember when I was going to college, my dad kind of like turned my room into a storage unit, and I feel like I was getting kicked out. And it's like, how could you say you're not trying to quietly, silently kick me out, you know? And I think I kind of just like slowly like moved out. And, you know, I found like some people to stay with and stuff. You know, I found my way. But then once I had a good stable job and income was flowing, and, you know, I got too comfortable, that's when like shit hit the fan, you know? So that's really what I'm trying to get into. You know, I might be sitting up on my soapbox, but simply put, try to keep it aligned. Hopefully you can work with them and they can work with you, and at the very least, you can follow their plan. And if you feel like they're trying to, you know, kick you out, you feel like they're trying to kick you to the wayside, you can sit there and just like work through that. Like a lot of times I find like if you just like kind of like go NPC mode on them, like just don't say anything, kind of just like, you know, I wouldn't say not along, I wouldn't say agree with them if you don't, you know, but kind of like sit through it and like ride that bull, kind of like, you know. And it's like, I'm telling you, you'll be surprised if you just keep getting back up on that bull. You just keep riding that bull. You know, no matter how many times it throws you off, you just keep getting back up on it. You'll wake up to see another day, and you might still have some money in your pocket. You might still have somewhere to live. You might still have somewhere to sleep. You know, because I feel like the worst thing that could happen is, I mean, obviously death. But other than that, is being homeless. You know, and I feel like that's the big thing right here, is like preventing that. You know, because it's like, however bad you may think it is, you know, something I used to say all the time is it can always get worse. I don't necessarily like that saying anymore, probably just because of the weight behind it. You know, it used to be something that would like kind of like lift me up, but now it's kind of something that like drags me down. It was like, oh shoot, maybe it can, you know. Whereas I used to be like, it can get worse, so maybe let me be, you know, grateful and happy for what I do have. Anyways, I'm struggling to stay on topic here. Just like got the juices flowing today. Not nearly as depressed as I was last time. But there's a lot of avenues, and there's a lot of routes, and there's a lot of things, and I feel like we don't necessarily know how things are gonna unfold until they do. And that's when we kind of get like caught in that moment, and we're just like, all right, fuck it, I'm just gonna run away, I'm just gonna leave, I'm just gonna move out, you know. And if your parent kicks you out, you know, you turn 18. I've seen videos where like parents kick their kids out when they turn 18, and I'm just like, dude, like what the heck, you know? Okay, quick segue. I was thinking about, one, making reaction videos, two, making like gaming videos. And I was wondering if I should do like a separate channel for that, or if I should just all keep it on here and maybe kind of just like label it, be like, okay, you know, keep this like its own little thing, and then have those its own little thing, and do it like, you know, episodes for that. But you know, this is kind of like, you know, to stick to the plot. This is kind of like a side thing because I have other things going on, you know, plans that other people have for me that I'm trying to stick to. And I have my own plans that I'm trying to stick to, and trying to like make sure those are congruent, and trying to like follow along with those, and try to be able to talk to people, which can be very hard, especially nowadays. You know, in a day and an age where I feel like people are just NPCs in a lot of ways, where it's just like, oh hey, you know, it's like I feel like you could go into a store and talk to a cash register, and it would just be like, oh hey, what's up, and then like they wouldn't even acknowledge you. You know, like you could just sit there, you could put your stuff down, they could ring it up, you give them your money, they give you your change, and you leave the store, and like not even a single word is exchanged. You know, and it's just like, man, like what does the world come to be at a point where we'd rather like post what we're eating on Instagram rather than like go out and talk to people in person? Because like I went to this Red Cross event, and it was like all old people. I was like the youngest person there, and that kind of like struck me. I was like, what? Like there's nobody young here? Like this is like this beautiful area, this beautiful park, and it's like all old people. Like where are the young people at? Like are we just all like getting wasted and drunk and high and fucked up? Like I mean, I understand like the utility and self-medication, like don't get me wrong on that. I know plenty of people that it seems to work for. You know, I wouldn't say it really works for me, but I know plenty of people that it seems to work for, you know, at least when it comes to like the norm, you know, SSRIs, God forbid, you know, Adderall, weed, you know, all that stuff. And I mean, you know, I know they're opening up a lot of that stuff for research purposes, which I don't think is a bad thing. I mean, in a way, I kind of wish that it would have been researched a lot sooner, but it might be a good thing also. But, you know, to bring it back together, I wouldn't have even been able to go to that event if I wasn't kind of like sticking to other people's plans, you know, plans they have for me and plans they have for themselves, you know. And I think that's where like a lot of this like chaos comes into play, is getting to that destination, right? It's like, you know, however cringy it may sound, just being able to work with them and enjoy the journey. Even when you're not enjoying it, being able to stay on that path so that you don't, you know, get lost in the land of Oz, if you will. Because I feel like that's where a lot of people end up going. You know, it's like they move out and they go to like the big city, and then they're like just gone. Like I know so many friends, I know so many people that are just gone, dude. Like they're gone. Like they are not the same person. And I mean, we're talking like, it seems like it's like that. Like it takes like 2-3 months, and like you see what they're posting, and it's just like, dude, like who are you? Like, you know, whether it's like they're doing something hard, you know, that I don't really want to talk about, or they're over here like posting like these crazy random things, and like that's why it's just like I'm like, stay in that lane, you know? Like seriously, like as discombobulating as that feels and as locked down as that feels, it's like if you stay in that, then you'll find other forms of expression. Like this is something I wanted to do for so long, but I never did it because I was so busy trying to like do this and that and this and that. And I was like, okay, let me watch this, let me do this, let me do this, let me do that. And it's just like this, you know, ADHD scatterbrain mindset. And it's just like, man, if like you have like a path, you know, you have like a lane for yourself, it kind of doesn't really matter, you know, like let's say this is like your lane. It doesn't really matter like how scattered like your thoughts are and shit if it's all like in the lane, because then you can kind of like go back and pick through that stuff and be like, okay, you know, this is what I have, you know. Like I'm like they say, no man will step in the same river, right? Yeah. And the saying may be off a little bit, but like I'm not the same person I was when I made that video the other day. But because I've, you know, as hard as it has been to stay in that lane, you know, it kind of looks more like a oval, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. I can still like go back and look and see, and I don't have to worry about all of that other shit. Like, I mean, look at all the other shit. Whereas I can just worry about this, and I can just work with this. You know, like, it's a lot easier to work with this than it is to work with all of that. And that's kind of what I'm getting into. What I'm trying to emphasize on, while also adding in a bunch of extra shit. Like I said, you know, sometimes extra shit just seems to get added in, but you know, you stay in your lane. You can kind of like organize it, categorize it, compartmentalize it, and you know, you're like, okay, I can work with that. So I'm trying to like find a way to bring it all together, but simply put, just staying on that path, however hard it seems, however many issues it seems like you have with these people, you know, and it's like that angst, you know, if you just like stick around, for a lack of better words, it seems like it just gets better, you know. It's like, and there's ups and downs in life, but like, I'm telling you, sometimes it feels like it has to go down before it goes back up again, you know. And I don't even know if that's necessary philosophy, just as much as like the way things seem to work, you know, like the fall and the rise of civilizations. I mean, how many civilizations have come and go? How many forgotten technologies have come and gone, you know? And it's like, if we could find a way to work together and stick together, you know, talking about like the big picture, the grand scheme of things, I think we'd be a lot better off than like trying to, you know, jump ship, you know. And obviously, if you're in like a very abusive, like physically abusive type of situation where it is like pure toxicity, that's a little bit different. I'm more or less talking about the people who are in like emotional type of abuse, you know, where it's like you don't feel very steady, you don't feel like you can really keep that calm. But you'd be surprised if you just kind of like go NPC mode and kind of like, you know, keep going. You know, if they want you to go to church, if they want you to go to college, if they want you to do this, they want you to do that. If you just keep doing it, you just keep sticking with it. No matter how bad you are, you just keep getting up on that bull. No matter how easy it is for you to fall off that bull, if you just keep getting back up on that bull, it seems like over time you get better. And you know, worst comes to serve, you got your backup plan. You know, and I definitely have a backup plan. I'm not saying not to have a backup plan. It seems like things just, it's weird. It's like you have water saved up and you don't need water, but you don't have water saved up and then you need water. So, you know, keeping it together, keeping it congruent, keeping that family unit, you know, it's like the big thing. Or keeping that relationship, you know, like that's like the big thing for me. And I feel like that's something that I've noticed with a lot of people. It's just like, if you can find a way to push through that bullshit, whatever it may be. Because I mean, I had that this morning, you know. I woke up with these urges, with these feelings, with this just this icky, grimy, slimy feeling, and I pushed through it. I worked through it, and I came out, you know. I don't want to say I came out on top, but I came out. I moved through that, and now I feel like I'm doing a lot better. You know, I'm about to go take the dog on a walk. About to go down to the job site, you know, fill out some paperwork, and you know, if I would have gone on the sites, you know, I don't think I'd be right here. I don't think I'd be making this video. I think I'd probably be, you know, wallowing in my misery, instead of being like, okay, you know, I had face to music. I had that hard conversation. I don't feel like I made a lot of progress. I don't feel like they understood me, but we're still here, you know. And it's like, even though a lot of times we don't see that subtlety, it's still there. Like, I feel like a lot of times we want like a big hop, a big leap, where a lot of times like that minute, precise simplicity really moves it forward. Like, let me think about it like this. If you gave somebody $5 just out the blue, that $5 may not be a lot of money, but that's like, that thought is going to, more than likely, in my opinion, drastically change what's gonna happen for them. It's like they may have done X, Y, and Z, but they're like, man, this stranger like just came up to me and gave me some money. Maybe they don't even want that money, but it's like a metaphor in a way, I guess. That it's like, that energy is like a form of currency in a way, and you sticking around may help them a lot more than you think, and that, you don't know how valuable you are, and that's really like the emphasis here is like, you don't know how much things can get better, how much things can change, how much things can advance when you do stick around, because then you have something to fall back on. I'm not saying to like take everything that you have and just throw it away. I'm just saying like keep what you do have and try to work with that, because you'll be surprised how much of what you want to do ends up happening when you stick around and try to get done what they want to get done. And that's where a lot of my regret lies, is just in not sticking around. Like I had a girlfriend, and her parents were not very approving, and in a lot of ways I wish I would have just dealt with that instead of ending it, because now I don't have that, and I ended up shacking up with this kind of iffy lady, very, very beautiful, younger than me, not to say that I'm old, but then she turned around and like cheated on me, whereas the woman I was with, maybe not as attractive physically by like conventional means, but inside she was very beautiful. She had like a very pure heart, and she was a trooper, and we went through a lot together, and for her sake, for my sake, I wish I would have stuck around, and previous relationship before that, I wish I would have done better, even in that one I wish I would have done better, but especially like the first one I had, I wish I would have done better. So I'd say to like wrap it up, if you kind of try to follow their plans, you'll find out that a lot of your plans will come to fruition too. That's I would say it's a new word, but it's something that came up recently. I heard my pop saying it, my dad saying it, was like fruition. I'm like, wow, like what is that even? What is that supposed to be? But yeah, sticking to their plan, you'll find out that a lot of times a lot of your plans can get done. And not only that, but you'll get a lot of things done, and you'll be able to see through a lot of things that you wouldn't have otherwise, because you'll be able to have that support system that you wouldn't have otherwise. And it's just working through that toxicity, working through all of that chaos, so that you can come through on the other side. Because you may not realize it, but you may not be right in the head either. We get like so caught up in like this ego and this Freud and this, all this, all these big terms and stuff. And like, basically I'm just trying to say, like, we get caught up in ourselves a lot of times. We don't even realize it, especially now, like social media and selfies and makeup and gym bros and all this like nonsense, of course opinion, but like just being able to be like, okay, let me stick with their plan, and maybe some of my plans will come through. You'll be surprised. I'm telling you, you'll be surprised. And then being able to sit back and be like, okay, maybe I'm not as right in the head as I thought. And then that's when you really can like circle back and be like, dang, like I had all this extra stuff on my plate, and it's like now I can see the green. I can see the algae. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. Dun, 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 dun. But yeah, you know, something they were saying in church, and again, I wouldn't even say my church is like a conventional church. I'm not trying to scare anybody away. I'm not trying to pull anybody in. I'm trying to keep it open and inclusive, because that's like the whole point, is being able to work together. But long story short, it's talking about like rolling away that tune. Something else they said, just a little tidbit I'll throw in there, is Jesus never asked anybody to change so he could love them. So really like letting that like resonate, and like being like, man, do I want them to change so that I can love them? Do I want them to be something completely different so I can love them? Or do I want to work with them and try to like get through that toxicity? Because a lot of times it's not necessarily what they're doing, it's the way they're doing it. Does that make sense? It's like, in a perfect world, their plan would be fine. It's just it's that attitude, it's that energy, it's that animosity, it's that that sarcasm, that that like that angstiness, and I see that in older people too. It's kind of funny, but like you just have this like it's like I feel like a lot of times they don't even see it, let alone acknowledge it, because it's like they're like so wrapped up in their own head and their own little world that like they don't even see how that like impacts other people, especially like just like all demographics. Really, it's kind of funny because like sometimes I get in that headspace too, where it's just like, dude, like holy cow, like how do they not like? It's like one mind. It's like oh, imagine like you like this is like kind of the way I think about like imagine like you stepped into a bar and like everything's going easy peasy, lemon squeezy, everything's nice and greasy, and like you say one thing off, and like the music stops, everybody looks at you and like, we might just have to kill you, boy, and so it's like that's kind of where I'm getting at, like if you stick to their plan, you might have those occurrences where it's like, wow, like I said that one little thing and it's like bam. That's where NPC mode comes into play, but that's also where like having something to fall back on comes into play, and you'll be surprised that a lot of your plans can come to fruition if you work with them and help them get their plans done, even though there's all that toxicity, and keeping that thought in your head, maybe I'm not so right in the head, and maybe that's affecting them, not affecting them in a way that I may not have thought of, and it just like it all seems to come together when you just work through that. And all that being said, it's like I don't want to be sure, but in a way I kind of am sure that there's going to be more of that in my future for me to have to work through, and just gotta keep going, and that's what I'm saying. Like I said that the main big thing that I'm adding to this is just giving people space to, what I'm saying, so that they can move forward, they can move on. I don't really like saying forget and forgive, but that's something I've heard before. I like to say, for me, it's more like forgive, so you can move forward, as long as you don't forget why you forgave them. And again, I'm probably gonna have to like keep remaking the same video until I really get like something that's like linear, rather than kind of like like a bunch of scribbles on the page. But getting out, making community, making good spaces, and this is kind of what this is about. It's just making community, making good spaces so that people can come together, and hopefully that can give people space to feel happy, and where they can kind of like get that weight off their shoulders, and then they can come back to what they already have, so that they can get out and they can come back. Yeah. So to wrap it up, I would say try to stick to what you have. That way you have something to fall back on. You know, stick to their plan in a way so that you can do your plans. Um, Working through that toxicity, and if need be, finding spaces where you can go for a time being. That way you can come back. That way they have some time alone, whether they improve at all or not. That way you can be like, take a deep breath and like let it in, let it out, and be like, all right. And sometimes you'd be surprised what going on can do for you. Like genuinely, like just going outside, like as corny, as cringy as it may sound, just going outside and like touching some grass, so you can be like, man, you know what? It's all gonna be okay. You know. And again, just you gotta like remember, like just because they're not right in the head doesn't mean you're right in the head. And trying not to reminisce on that negativity so that you can focus on the positivity, so you can be realistic, right? I think that's something that I was like really emphasizing last time, is trying to focus on that positivity rather than that negativity, because when you focus on that positivity, you can find something more realistic. Because I mean, whether you're positive or negative, you're gonna fall into something realistic. It's gonna probably be something that's tangible. The problem is, do you want to, focus on something negative? What is it saying? Where attention goes, energy flows. So if you're like over here focusing on this negative, that might be what you create for yourself, or that might be, I wouldn't even say what you create. I wouldn't necessarily say what you create for yourself, but that might be the path that you end up leaning towards. Whereas you try to focus on that positivity, you might find yourself going more in the positive. If you focus on the negative, you might find yourself going more in the negative. And you might be sitting here like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? How am I supposed to focus on the negative? How am I supposed to focus on the positive when all I can see is negative? That's kind of my point, is you're over here, hyper fixating on that negative. Whereas if you try to like look for that positive, you'd be surprised. Like it's almost like a tunnel, It's like you focus on that positive long enough, and just more and more positive things seem to keep popping up. I'm trying to think of a good example, like give you something tangible, if you will. Ever since I was young, I had a hard time getting along with people. And I remember like, being on the playground, like just thinking like, man, like I don't really like see eye to eye with these people. None of these people seem to make any sense to me. Like I don't understand their behavior. I don't understand their dynamics. Like just like sitting back and like observing them, and just being, and like just like I remember like just sitting there walking on that tightrope, balancing, quite literally balancing on like those little black ridges we used to have that held in the gravel and the dirt and the mulch, and just sitting there and being like, man, like life is like so complex, and there's so many different things, and there's so many like all these intricacies. And I was just like, man, like why does it seem so hard to like get along with all these people? Whereas now it's like just coming forth and just being there. Maybe you don't have anything to bring to the table, but if you just show up, keep riding that bull, you'll be surprised. And maybe something doesn't work out, and maybe it wasn't meant to be. Now I'm really trying to like touch down and like explain this like life experience that I've had in a way that will make sense to people, in a way that will like resonate with them, so that they can like lift up that vibe for themselves. Because like, dude, if I would have just stayed in college, even if I would have gone to debt, and there's that negativity where it's like, man, maybe I should have just crashed and burned, but maybe I wouldn't have. Maybe I would have gone into debt, but maybe if I would have just kept coming back and kept persevering, maybe I would have actually gotten that degree. You know what I'm saying? Instead of thinking about like, oh, doom and gloom, the economy's not good, this is not good, and just being like, okay, let me focus on what I can do. Let me focus on like, okay, what is something I really want to do? You know, they want me to go to college. Okay, where's maybe some leeway? You know, what's something that's realistic but also positive? All right, let me go into tech. Let me go into STEM. Let me go into, you know, marketing, right? Like, let's say you want to be an artist. Well, that's positive. And what's something that's realistic? Marketing, right? So you bring those two together, and now you have something congruent. Because they want you to go to college. So like, okay, I'll go into marketing. That's business. So that kind of like, you know, pleases them. Where it's like, okay, they see something realistic and you see something positive. So you bring that artistic element to their realistic element of you going to college and doing something that makes money. You bring that together, and now you're like, man, now I can express my artisan, my art, into the marketing, right? And you know, you kind of have to, like I said, you kind of have to work through that toxicity, like that, you know, that negative feeling, you know, that kind of like hurts, but you work through that, and then you kind of like come out on the other side, and you're like, man, I just made this commercial for this company, and it's on the big screen. It's like, whoa, like there's these colors and these splashes and all of this, and it's like at the same time, it's pushing this product. So I'm making money, and I also get to see my art out in the world. So anyways, just keeping it real, keeping it realistic, keeping it positive, and trying your best not to fall into that negative. Even when there's like these fucked up family dichotomies and dynamics and all of these just things that just, you know, just these icky, sticky, wicky things that just don't seem to fare well for anybody. And like I said, you'd be surprised when you stick to their plan, how your plans can come into play, and you keep yourself in check and realize that just because they're not right in the head doesn't mean you're not right in the head. Doesn't mean that you are right in the head either. You'll be surprised that like, okay, now I'm finding some ground, you know. And a lot of times yelling and cussing and all of that, but if you can just hold on for dear life, you know, as long, like I said, as long as it's not like physically abusive, you'll be surprised at like what can happen and what positivity can come out of that negativity, you know. Balance is literally in my middle name, yin and yang. In all the negativity, there's some positivity. In all the positivity, there's some negativity. So whether you're in that positivity and you're dwelling on that negativity, or whether you're in that negativity and you can't see that positivity, or you're dwelling in the negative, even though there is positive, or whether you're, you know, dwelling in the positive even though there's negative and you need to focus on the negative, just staying in that path. That way you can work with what you do have. All right. That was a long tangent, a lot of rambling. I'm probably gonna go back and, you know, listen to what I said. So hopefully I can, you know, come back with something more revised and more polished next time. Maybe not. We'll see. Long story short, just sticking to it, you know. And like I said, if I stick to it, who knows? This shit, it may pop off, it may not pop off. We'll see. But all right, y'all have a blessed day. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I hope all goes well. All right, bye bye.